Let's bring you more now on what has been happening in Somalia, an extreme drought which our Africa correspondent Andrew Harding reported on 2 weeks ago. He's now returned to Somalia to see its impact in another part of the country. Now, Somalia has a long history of droughts, but climate change has made the intervals between them shorter, and the current one is the worst for 40 years. Let's show you what it looks like on this map, which uses data from a US aid group that monitors famine. The areas that you see marked in orange there are classed as being in crisis, and the red ones are classed as being one step worse, being in emergency conditions. And then there's an area which you can see marked in dark red on the map, and that is where a full-blown famine is projected to begin within weeks. The definition of that is where households have no food, children suffer acute malnutrition, and people die every day from starvation. Now, Andrew's report that you're about to see comes from a place called Dolo, and that's where people have been coming in search of life-saving help. A warning that you are likely to find parts of it difficult to watch.
From the parched plains of southern Somalia, a weary exodus. These families have trekked for days across a hostile wilderness in search of food. Tens of thousands have made similar journeys in recent weeks, drawn to places like this. The crowded outskirts of Dolo, a border town where some help is at hand. The local hospital, funded by Britain since the last famine here back in 2011, is playing a vital role.
The baby is really very severely malnourished. Okay. What was he suffering from?
But Pamela Wasonga, a nutrition expert from neighbouring Kenya, is afraid of what lies ahead.
Somalia needs help.
Now?
Now, yeah.
And if it doesn't get it?
Oh, we are headed for a catastrophe. This is serious. It's really going to get worse if nothing more comes in other than what's already there.
Today, that catastrophe is already taking shape in the crowded stabilisation ward. As usual, it's the under-5s who act as the fragile sirens of famine. And today, a boy named Abdiweli is fighting for his life. He's 2 years old, but weighs little more than a newborn baby. So he's been hungry for most of his life. His mother, Hawa, tells me Abdiweli had a fever for weeks. The drought took everything from us, all our crops, our cattle, she says. There was nothing left for the boy to eat. Which is why they came here to Dolo. It took Abdiweli and his family 9 days to walk to this camp. They had to beg for food on the way. It was Somalia's savage drought that forced them off their farm. But the real culprit here is man-made climate change. Almost no one here thinks they'll ever go back to their farms, to their old way of life. The next morning, we return to check up on Abdiweli. But he's struggling. His body temperature has dropped sharply.
Probably might be successful, I'm not very sure, but they're still trying to resuscitate.
The doctors try to warm him with a foil blanket, but he's too weak to respond. His mother and grandmother watch silently. But there is no more to be done. And with a light touch on her shoulder, Hawa is told that it's over. Her husband Kerad is there too to see the end.
The number of children that we lost here this year, 2022, also increased. Yeah.
It must take a toll on you and your staff to see that.
Yeah, it normally takes a toll, especially it is so sad and painful when you witness something that can be prevented and can be corrected very easily.
Within hours, Abdiweli's father is already helping to dig a grave. There are brief prayers. And as the women watch from a distance, a 2-year-old's body is buried. It will not be the last here. Andrew Harding, BBC News in Dolo, Somalia.
And Andrew joins us now live from Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Andrew, you showed us the story of that one family and their grief, but you've seen the wider picture and the international response too. How would you describe it?
Well, it's not enough, certainly not even halfway to meeting the needs, which are growing very fast here, Mishal. The latest figures are that nearly 8 million Somalis are in urgent need of help. That's half the population. That's doubled in the last few months. Britain, for instance, is giving some £50 million to Somalia this year, but that's a quarter what it provided 5 years ago during the last drought here, which was narrowly avoided becoming a famine. The concern now is that within the next 4 to 6 weeks, a famine could well be declared, but that will come too late, almost certainly for thousands, if not tens of thousands, mostly of young children like Abdi Weli there, who are the most vulnerable victims of this man-made catastrophe ultimately, because this is really about climate change. But it's also about conflict, and Somalia has been at war essentially for the past 30 years, and that's showing no sign of ending. Al-Shabaab, the Islamist militant group, still controls a lot of the countryside here. It's very influential and powerful and dangerous in the cities too, and it means that it's a very difficult country to help, very difficult to get access to about 1 million Somalis who are trapped in territory controlled by Al-Shabaab, and we really don't know what conditions they're in right now.
Andrew, thank you. Our Africa correspondent Andrew Harding there reporting tonight from Somalia.